Welcome to the first edition of Federation Update for 2014. We're going to hear from some Federation officers about campaigns and issues that are ahead of us at the moment. The Gonski campaign has taken to the road. President Maurie Mulheron talks about the Gonski van road trip and the Senate inquiry into the funding plan.
Hello, I'm Maurie Mulheron and I'm President of the New South Wales Teachers Federation. I'd like to take this opportunity at the start of the 2014 school year to update members and supporters of public education within the wider community of where we're up to with the Gonski funding campaign. Over the Christmas New Year period, people will have seen Christopher Pyne attempt to take attention away from funding with distractions like independent public schools and the curriculum review. But the Teachers Federation, in conjunction with our national union, the Australian Education Union, will be, of course, putting pressure on politicians to fund the full 6-year Gonski model. At the moment, we have vans travelling the length and breadth of the nation, from Hobart to Canberra, from Perth, from Darwin, from Brisbane. They'll be travelling to New South Wales by March, and for many weeks they'll be galvanising support within school communities for the funding model. And in Canberra we hope to have an event that will also publicise the Gonski funding model. Clearly this is going to be very important, and there'll be information provided in mail-outs to schools and of course in the Federation Journal as well as on our website, and we ask members to keep informed by visiting the website and to read their journal and to see what part of the campaign they'd like to be involved in. The other very important event that is happening is a Senate inquiry that the ALP in conjunction with the Greens launched late last year. Now this Senate inquiry is not reopening the whole funding debate. The funding debate has been settled in terms of the model. We support the model. We're not going to re-prosecute the need for additional resources into schools. That's clearly been identified as a need by the Gonski Review. But we will take the Senate inquiry as an opportunity to have members voice their concern of where we're heading in this nation, particularly in relation to the federal government's reneging on their commitment to fund the Gonski model. So we'll be calling on all schools, communities and members of the public to put in a submission to the Senate inquiry. We're going to make it a little bit easier. There's the I Give a Gonski website which people can visit. That's igiveagonski.com.au. If they visit that website, there will be an opportunity to put in a brief submission. We're hoping that right across Australia, particularly New South Wales, there will be schools, parent organisations, principals and individual teachers putting in a submission to that Senate inquiry, calling on the federal government to honour the 6-year full Gonski model. So the two things for Gonski that we need to remind people about are the van strategy, the vans to Canberra that's going to be publicising the need for a funding model over the next few weeks, and also urging teachers and supporters to visit I Give a Gonski and put in their submission to the Senate inquiry. Thank you.
Research Officer Sue Simpson talks about the extent to which some teachers are spending their own money to subsidise activities and purchase materials for their classes and schools.
Well, the Federation last surveyed teachers on their out-of-pocket expenses in 2011, and frankly for many of us it was quite a surprise to find that some teachers were spending up to $4,000 a year on their classrooms, and that could equate to 2 to 3% of their annual salary. And I think another thing that was surprising is that governments, when they talk about funding, they'll talk about state and federal funding, they'll talk about the contribution parents can make, but they totally forget the extent to which teachers themselves are subsidising the public education system. So we wanted to draw that to the attention of the Gonski Review, and certainly the Federation's submission included not just information on federal funding, state funding, parental contributions, but also the results of the survey that we conducted back then. Certainly the higher expenditure is mostly primary school teachers, and they're certainly spending it on pens and pencils, papers, but they're also spending it on craft materials, they're spending it on audio-visual equipment, they're spending it on materials for school plays. Really, it's a whole range of things. It very much depends on the teacher and the school exactly what the money is being spent on. Some primary school teachers, they might get $100 a year for the whole year for their classroom to buy, special things for the kids. In schools that are more advantaged, some of those teachers might get $400. Other teachers might not get anything. The school, or they feel in their school that it's expected of them, that it's part of being a teacher, that you pay for these additional items. In other schools, there's simply no scrutiny of the school finances, so that teachers can, when they put in submissions for the school budget, say, well, okay, in our particular faculty in a secondary area, we do need to have a faculty budget that will provide for the pens for the kids who don't bring them, for the books for the kids who lose them, for the extra photocopy paper. Well, we're certainly saying with this survey that teachers need to look at their expenses. They need to be aware of it. They need to question how necessary some of it is. But certainly if it is necessary, we're saying that schools, teachers in schools, should be asking questions about the school finances. And their voice should be heard. It's very important that teachers have the resources that they need, and it certainly requires a change of attitudes in some schools from a view of saying, well, okay, you as a teacher, this is an expectation that you spend this amount of money, or perhaps lesser amounts, without the school finding ways to provide that funding. Now, we also know, however, that some schools simply do not have the money to provide all the things that teachers need in their classrooms. And so this survey then becomes a tool for those schools who want to keep pressuring the federal government to fully fund Gonski, to make them aware of the funding deficiencies that are in our public schools.
Teachers are encouraged to take part in the survey in order to establish the full extent of this out-of-pocket expenditure subsidy. Rod Brown, Federation's Assistant General Secretary, Research and Industrial, has been involved with all the recent bargaining around teacher awards and agreements. Here, Rod explains why the O'Farrell government is attempting to undermine these salary increases by discounting the Commonwealth Government's superannuation guarantee levy.
Well, my name is Rod Brown. I'm the Assistant General Secretary, Research and Industrial for the Teachers Federation. I have been part of the bargaining team in relation to all the enterprise agreements and awards covering teachers in schools, corrective services, AMES, as well as enterprise agreements covering members in TAFE. I'm also involved in the drafting, preparing and minuting of all the awards and agreements. There have been developments in court since the matter went to members back in December. The state government has now exhausted its available options before the Industrial Commission in terms of the various legal arguments it has run in that particular forum. The President of the Industrial Commission in December made orders for the increase of 2.5% for all public sector awards. The government sought a stay of those orders, and in January this year the matter was considered by the full bench of the Industrial Commission, and the full bench rejected the government's efforts for a request for a stay of orders issued by the IRC in December. This means that the only option available now to the government is to appeal to the Supreme Court of New South Wales, sitting as the Court of Appeal in an effort to overturn the Industrial Commission's decision. It is extraordinary, and the government's efforts in the legislative forum now go back to June of last year, when the Industrial Commission first determined that the full 2.5% increase could be awarded for public sector salaries. To go to the Supreme Court is a significant decision by the New South Wales government, and the grounds for appeal are limited. It can't ask the Supreme Court to rule on the merits of the Industrial Commission's decision. It can only ask the Supreme Court to decide whether the Industrial Commission has made an error at law. If the Supreme Court upholds the decision of the Industrial Commission, the increases of 2.5% will be applied retrospectively, and they will apply to people, not only those currently in employment, but including those who may have separated, such as retired, during January. The result for those people is that they will have their final payments, including the retirement payments, adjusted to reflect the higher rates of pay. This is particularly significant for members of the older superannuation schemes, that is the state superannuation scheme, which is generally known as the old scheme, and the state authority superannuation scheme, which is usually referred to as the middle scheme, as those schemes have their benefits determined in part or entirely by final salary. What will happen should the Industrial Commission's decision prevail is that those salary increases will occur, the salary that would otherwise have been paid to those members will apply, and the state superannuation fund and the state authority superannuation scheme will be notified that in fact the exit salaries are higher, and that will then be reflected in higher retirement benefits for those members. I think the significant point in relation to this matter is that the government has provided an undertaking both to all New South Wales public sector unions, including the Teachers Federation, and to the Industrial Commission, that should it ultimately fail, then it will pay the increase of 2.5% backdated to the operation of the award. There is one other significant issue that has been a development since members settled on the current award enterprise agreement arrangements. Back in July of last year, the government issued a regulation to change its own wages policy as a means of circumventing the decisions of the Industrial Commission. That regulation was disallowed by the New South Wales Parliament in August of last year. Following the most recent decisions of the Industrial Commission in December of this year, the government reissued in almost identical terms the same regulation. However, the groups that previously aligned in the New South Wales Parliament, the ALP, the Greens and the Shooters and Fishers parties have all agreed that they will combine again to defeat the regulation when Parliament again resumes on the 4th of March. If those three parties combine as they did previously, the new regulation is doomed to fail in the same way as the previous regulation did.
Mel Smith, Federation organiser, reports from the annual Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras Fair Day and the importance that this day holds for teachers and students.
We're here today at Victoria Park for Fair Day, which is the start of the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. And Fair Day is when a number of organisations from across the GLBTI community and other supportive organisations and businesses come to the one spot to launch Mardi Gras, but also to be part of a community event, so we're part of that. So Federation's role is to promote public education, to promote TAFE and our Gonski campaigns. Also, it's good in terms of trying to raise our profile that we're teachers and we're trying to address homophobia in schools, and we have some resources to support that here on the day as well. It's good to have conversations with LGBTI people because often people think, well, my experience at school was quite bad, and then we can say what's happening now and that teachers are supportive, and it's been really good in terms of a bit of a PR exercise. But there's a number of teachers also that are in the LGBTI community, and we pick up some members, some student members, and we have heaps of TAFE people coming by as well, whether they're students or teachers, and they like to engage with us as well. So we do a lot, I suppose, from the stall.
Recently, the marketing and advertising strategies of many private registered training organisations has come under scrutiny. Sue Simpson explains why this is an issue in New South Wales.
In January, the Australian Skills Quality Authority, ASQA, released a report that was very critical of the marketing and advertising practices of quite a number of registered training organisations in Australia. Now, what they said is that it's widespread across the sector that advertising can be misleading and marketing practices can be inappropriate. Now, this is all very worrying because in New South Wales, we're certainly facing, if the government's proposals go ahead under Smart and Skilled, that there will be more private training providers offering vocational qualifications. So if we have the national regulator, who is concerned about advertising and marketing practices, has conducted an anonymous review into quite a number of those organisations and has released a report expressing concern about around half of those organisations as possibly being in breach of advertising and marketing guidelines, then I really think we need to look at where we're going here in New South Wales, where we're going nationally. And in particular, we need to be realising that in TAFE New South Wales, we have an organisation that is reputable, it's known for quality, is accountable to the people of New South Wales through the New South Wales Parliament. And one of the disturbing results from this survey was that around 22% of applications to set up a registered trading organisation or RTO are rejected. And further, and 11% of existing providers' renewal of registration applications are rejected. Now, this was information that was provided to Senate budget estimates last year. So there are big problems. And I might say too that some of the new corporate providers coming into the field have recognised that there is a real problem with the reputation of quite a number of providers, and that of course is affecting all providers within the system. Well, they certainly can withdraw registration. However, the particular inquiry that was conducted was done on an anonymous basis to just have a look at, the extent of problems. To actually take prosecutions requires a different level of proof. But there has been concern as to just how strong the regulator is, the adequacy of its funding, and in fact the Chief of ASQA raised that matter in Senate budget estimates last year also. So what we have at the moment is the training sector being opened up to ever more training providers, but where we have quite a weak regulator, where we also find that a lot of private providers are spending proportionately more than the government provider on advertising and marketing rather than what they're spending on the quality of their teachers or the quality of their educational provision.
Thanks for watching the first 2014 edition of Federation Update.